Hey Rebels, my name is Matthew Barton. Welcome to the Rebellion Brewing Podcast. Saskatchewan Craft Beer Week is just around the corner. From May 3rd to 8th, breweries across this province will be celebrating our local scene and the launch of a very special wheat beer known as Resilience. Mark Heise, the president and CEO of Rebellion Brewing, is also the current chair of the Saskatchewan Craft Brewers Association. He's sitting down with me today to talk a little bit about Sask Craft Beer Week, but more importantly, Resilience beer. So let's get into it. Mark, welcome to the show.
Happy to be here as always.
How's it going?
Pretty good, yeah. Sask Craft Beer Week's just around the corner, and that's always a fun, exciting time of year.
Tell me about Sask Craft Beer Week. I know we've been doing it for a few years, but what is it generally?
So craft beer weeks are typically a designation made, provincially, or some cities may even have them. They're very, very popular. Obviously, during a pandemic, you're kind of limited by all the celebrations that you can do in person, but it's really just to celebrate and acknowledge the power and growth and success of that industry. It's very much a local type of a thing. And it's a reason just to celebrate all the great things and how we all integrate as a community and as a local economy to do great stuff.
I feel like the last time we all got together to celebrate craft beer was right before the lockdown. We were at the German club. We were meeting with our friends, having beers. I think that was like the last big social gathering that I attended.
Yeah, so that was in February of last year. We had a SCBA beer festival in Regina. That was the second one that we had done. And I mean, there was just so much hype and excitement. It felt so good. We had figured out a model as to how to grow with that. We still have that model. We can take it off the shelf, hopefully at some point here. And then we were just getting ready to roll into the actual Sask Craft Beer Week last year. The brewers had all gotten together to brew the collab beer at Pile of Bones, and that was one of the last things that we were able to do. It was about a week before the actual shutdowns.
Crazy. It feels like so long ago, yet not. It's kind of a time warp.
Yeah, it's going to take, I don't know, I try to wrap my head around how this is all going to go down and be remembered, and it's just way too much to take in, and unfortunately we're still living it right now.
So what can people who want to support and celebrate Sask Craft Beer Week this year look forward to?
Right, so it's really just meant to celebrate anything that has to do with the local beer industry. I believe that we have around 23 breweries, licensed craft breweries in the province right now. There's a few more that I think just got licensed, so we're probably getting closer to 25. I don't know if we'll get to 30 by the end of the year, but now you're putting me on the spot. But there was at least 4 new breweries that opened last year, maybe 6. That's completely absurd in a pandemic, frankly, and a lot of folks like to talk to me and say, oh, you're the little guy, and how hard this must be. And yeah, it is hard. But then I start thinking about some of these other folks, that literally opened their doors and had to close them, or they had to open their doors and you couldn't let anyone in. That is a terrifying, terrifying spot to be. I think about when we opened our doors at Rebellion, how tough that was, and the amount of hours that got poured in. And you're just drinking from the fire hydrant and just trying to keep going. And so obviously to do that in a pandemic just further amplifies the stress and the time that it takes to make a go of it.
I kind of feel like I want to give a shout out to Ryan and Teresa Moncrief at Rafter R, because I think they only got like a week open and then it was like bang.
Yeah, Rafter R was one. Warehouse Brewing was another one just down the street. I mean, that's a pretty tough pill to swallow. You put in all that work and heart and soul, and yeah. So I mean, kudos to them. And I've never even been to Rafter R Brewing, and I'm big fans of them. I like them. I appreciate them. We've known of them for a while. They were at the craft beer festival just as fans, frankly. They were just so excited. They wanted to be a part of this. And so, none of that's gone away. It's just kind of on hold, and a lot of it has to be done remotely. And so, Yeah, it's really just, hopefully we can at least take a pause here next week and just celebrate and acknowledge all the hard work that has happened, the great community of brewers. But it's not just about the brewers, it's really about all of the fans and the customers. It's about farmers, it's about people making malt, people making hops. And it really, I'm not trying to over dramatize the importance of craft beer, but it really is a symbol of everything that goes into what makes a community great, and how you survive these pandemics and stuff like that, where you really have to rely on each other and support each other, and you find out what truly matters. And so I've been in lots of conversations this week on so just some thoughts around tourism and generating new tourism, and everyone or restarting the economy, and everyone in these meetings, people a lot smarter than me, been in this business a lot longer than me, and probably have a lot more money than me. All of them won't shut up about Saskatchewan craft beer and this industry, and how important it is, and how exciting it is, and what a great job we've done, and how proud everyone should be. And so to hear those things said back to you unprompted, tells me that we should be pretty proud of that fact. And so I hope that all of the brewers and everyone that's taken a chance on any purchase of Saskatchewan craft beer takes some pride, and takes the time to celebrate this week.
Tell me about Resilience Beer. Why is this something so special?
Yeah, so the big thing this year, I mean, we do a collab every year, but obviously this is going to be the main focal point of Sask Craft Beer Week, is this collaboration beer called Resilience. And so it was brewed at Rebellion Brewing. We usually move it around to different breweries, take their turn. As I said, Bones did the one last year. And again, typically we all get together physically and brew the beer. We obviously couldn't do that, but we did the usual, kind of via email and online chats, kind of threw around some ideas around recipes and thoughts and whatnot. And so we ultimately settled on, I'm just calling it a wheat beer. If you want to get into kind of beer terms of the beer, because the beer geeks, that's never good enough for them. They're like, well, which kind of wheat beer? And, and sure, and that's where. So I know that a lot of beer geeks listen to this. So, frankly, it's a hazy pale ale, to be honest, made with wheat. That's probably the best way of describing it. There is a good bit of hops in it. It's very, very soft and subtle. I actually tasted some with some of the staff yesterday, and they commented how there is zero bitterness in this, which is what we really wanted to go for. We even tasted some of our new Golden Crush, which is, again, a similar beer, and the Golden Crush was considerably had a bit more of a bite, which I would not call that. I wouldn't say Golden Crush has any bite either, but it was noticeably different. And so maybe I'm just getting into the technical details, but that's when there is a large portion of wheat in this recipe, and wheat is very soft in terms of what it adds to a flavor profile. It's soft and it's creamy. There's also lots of oats in this beer, which is what we typically add to our hazy pale ales. Again, that just kind of adds to that mouthfeel and creaminess and smoothness. And the wheat, so we use wheat malt, and that was donated by Prairie Malt out of Bigger, Saskatchewan. So shout out to Dave Klinger there. He's always been a huge supporter of us. He even was texting me on the weekend, because we were talking about some of our friends at Rebellion Brewing who have frankly passed away from COVID. I was talking about that on Twitter, and David was kind enough just to send me a quick text and said, hey, thinking about you. I think that's really, I just mentioned that because it's a pretty powerful thing. It shows you just how connected our community is, and that people really do genuinely care about each other. So we're really proud that he wanted to donate that wheat malt. So that's in the beer. As I mentioned, there's oats. We get the oats from Maker's Malt out of Roster in Saskatchewan. And then our barley component is we use the raw or two-row barley, which is actually malted in Alberta, but a large proportion of their barley comes from Saskatchewan. Again, for most of your base malt, you have to blend it. Even at Prairie Malt, you're getting a blend. It's not all Saskatchewan malt. It is a blend so that they can account for seasonal variances across the growing regions. So it's really, really great stuff. The hops in the beer, we use two different hop varieties, and were grown in Saskatchewan, JGL Shepherd Farms. by our friend Justin. And Justin Shepard again just sent us a video greeting last week just to Rebellion, and it was just, hey, how's it going? Hope you guys are doing well. And that goes a long ways. It just kind of boosts everyone's spirits to know that people care about us and think about you. I'm not sure in other industries if your suppliers just send you texts and greetings like that. Maybe they do, but it's usually some greasy thing that's mandated by their corporate head office. So you can smell those a mile away as opposed to a genuine greeting from somebody. But anyways, those hops, again, they grew on Justin's farm, and I helped pick some of those. And anyways, the two different varieties are Comet and Triple Pearl. And there is some really nice fruity, citrusy characteristics. There's also a little bit of a herbal note. Some may call it spicy, but I don't want people to think it's spicy as in like hot or peppery. It's spicy in the terms of hops. If you're used to noble hops that grow in Germany, they have a little bit of that character. So almost, I feel I would almost call them like a hybrid between a noble hop and a North American citrusy variety. And so just a really nice, lovely component, especially by combining the two. If you want to get into, again, how you kind of craft recipes and work with hops, we do some single hop beers, absolutely, which are interesting and can be delicious. But finding the right combination of, 2 or 3 hops can create something really, really interesting and unique, especially with some of these newer varieties, like say a Comet or a triple Pearl. They are bred in such a way to really push certain characteristics, but sometimes it can be too much of a good thing, or you get something a little maybe unintended. And it doesn't make it a bad hop, but you need to, by blending them, it just kind of smooths some of those highs and lows and just comes up with something really powerful. And I think it really, really works well in this beer. I'm frankly blown away by the resulting hop character in this beer.
I find it interesting to hear you talk about the blending of hops, because not only does that require knowledge of what the hop does on its own, but a little imagination, a little bit of forecasting with your palate, and then remembering and collating or correlating that data to a future state in a beer product. So you're saying, I'm guessing these two proportions of hops at this kind of brewed in a particular way, either dry hopped or wet hopped or introduced at a particular time or temperature, are going to produce these certain flavors. Like there's feels like there's 20 different factors or variables going into just to blend a hop to get a final product. How the hell did you get to that place?
Again, it's just by building kind of a memory and an inventory of hops, smelling and tasting hops. If you've done any single hop beers like that, so the Pile of Bones Pilsner that is out, it uses exclusively Triple Pearl. We did an exclusively all Comet solo crush beer. So I kind of had that in my library of sensory memories and tastes and flavors. And so I felt good about that. It doesn't mean that you get it right every time, but you have to deliberately focus and concentrate on how those things work. I give you one really good example. It always pops into my mind, which is, there's 3 hops that a lot of people really love in craft brewing: Amarillo, Citra, and Mosaic. They're all super, super fruity, super, super juicy. I love those hops. Amarillo, I've kind of lost a bit of interest personally over the last few years, but they're wonderful, wonderful hops. But if all that you do is make every single beer with Mosaic and you just dry hop the crap out of everything with nothing but Mosaic, it becomes a one-trick pony very, very quickly. And as great as it is, it's like, okay, that's great. You hit me over the head with oranges. Maybe let's throw in something else once in a while. So that's where we don't. We'll occasionally do single hop beers with some of those hops, but it's far more interesting to blend them. So it's a whole other skill and art unto itself.
I had a friend private message me about the single hop beers, and he goes, "You fuckers, you're testing something, aren't you? You're trying to figure something out." And I'm like, yeah, we are. You caught us.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's a learning experience. It's an R&D process. Obviously, we don't want to put out subpar beers as part of R&D. That's one thing that's bugged me about a lot of brewers, especially quite a few years ago. They're just putting out just garbage, as you know, science experiments that shouldn't have never happened. So we don't try to do that, but yeah, absolutely. The single hop beers absolutely allow you to do some of that evaluation, and none of them taste bad. None of them are like, oh geez, wish we wouldn't have released that. That was a horrible idea. So we try to balance the two of those.
We talked about hops, and frankly, I love Comet. I don't know why I've only had them in the 2 or 3 handful of beers that we've done, but I'm just like a big fanboy for Comet.
Yeah, I mean, I'm impressed with all of the beers we've done with those, and I'm trying to figure out how we can fit that into more of our beers. I haven't quite figured that one out yet, but yeah, I mean, absolutely, that's what it's all about, and I think I like keeping some recipes almost unchanged, but sometimes there's nothing wrong with evolving and flowing. I know some folks don't want things to ever change, or they think that there's an issue with that if they find that out. But yeah, I think that's kind of part of the journey and part of the fun. Obviously, if you're completely changing a beer recipe, it should be a new beer and a new name. But I don't see anything wrong with swapping out one hop for a different one, or trying this or trying that. I'll even tell when we talk about R&D, one of the things that we do, I'll tell you right now, with some of our flagship beers, we may brew a batch of amber with different hops, and they're not completely different hops, but just a slightly different hop, or and we'll taste it in the tank and this and that, but we don't necessarily release it. We'll blend it with another batch of the current, kind of the standard recipe at the time. So as the consumer, you're not really tasting that. We pull our own samples and do our own evaluations in the brewery out of the tank. But yeah, so that's just another little kind of insider trick that we may do. That doesn't mean you should taste every can and question how much we've screwed with it. That's not necessarily the intent. We've maybe done it 3 times, but that's how you ultimately, that's where you have to use that scientific method, right? And so I remember Nathan Carey from Palo Bones, when he first started working there as their brewer, and he said, Mark, what should I do? And I just said, only change one thing at a time. That's it. And I said, you're gonna have to brew a lot of beer, and you're gonna have to taste each change you make, which takes a long time in the scheme of things. When a beer takes 2 or 3 weeks to brew, and then you actually have to taste it and make notes and this and that, and on and on and on. But I said you have to do it that way, and so that's what we really believe in at Rebellion. Is we'll change one thing and then test it compared to a previous batch or the current batch, or and ask multiple people to taste it. And everyone can debate about who makes good beer or what beer tastes the best, but in terms of what we're trying to do and the beers we're trying to put out, I think that's what makes our beers so good in my mind.
We talked a lot about hops. Let's revisit wheat. It's such an iconic Saskatchewan crop, such an iconic ingredient. We get asked to make wheat beers all the time. What does wheat do compared to, say, barley?
Right. So historically and scientifically, barley was the crop for beer, and wheat was the crop for bread. The biggest reason why barley is the preferred thing for beer is that barley has a husk, and you need to be able to filter the grain out separate it from the beer, which the husk basically acts as a natural filter. Wheat does not have a husk. And so you can't really make beer with just wheat. You can add some of it to a beer and kind of get away with it. Kind of modern methods is that if you're using a lot of wheat, you can add rice hulls, which basically are just filter. It's flavorless. It's so we'll do that on beers with lots of wheat in it. But as I said, it's wheat is very high in protein, and I want to say beta glucans. And so it gets actually, if you use too much of it while you're brewing, it basically turns your mash into glue. It's just this gummy, sticky glue, which is a bad thing if you're trying to separate the beer from that. But obviously, by adding some of that wheat, though, you're adding that texture, that smoothness, that creaminess, that body, because there's all that protein in there, and it stays in suspension. And now, so that was wheat beer was the original cloudy beer, because the much higher protein content than barley just stays suspended in the beer. So the traditional German wheat beer and the Belgian wheat beers both have that characteristic, and so that's really where that came from. But again, to traditionally in Germany with their wheat beers, they kind of treated it as a very special thing, and in fact. The king, it was only allowed to be brewed for him and for royalty. The masses, it was considered not good. It was too good of a product for anyone else to enjoy. So it's always kind of been a niche specialty product. Yeah, it was actually Bavaria, which if you want to get really technical, because someone will yell at me and be like, it's not technically a German wheat beer, it's a Bavarian wheat beer, which again, if we can get into geography and history and blah, blah, blah. But so, yes, usually someone wants to try and tell me how wrong I am, and that's fine. That's okay. So
Well, what about oats?
yeah, so again, oats is this. We really love using oats. It's almost, to me, it's like wheat on steroids to a degree. There is a lot more of an oil. There's a lot more oil in oats than wheat has, or barley for that matter. So again, you have to be a lot more lighter handed with it, because it can be it's very slick. And so again, if it's overdone, but in the right amounts, again, it just creates that lovely, smooth, creamy texture that people are just such a fan of nowadays. It has Heise, it adds protein and all of that stuff. And so it's a very common ingredient in any of these, hazy IPAs and hazy pale ales. So if anyone's a home brewer or whatnot, and you're trying to up your game in that, you definitely want to add some oats into those beers to just kick them up a notch.
I know it's super secret because we haven't even released it where I can have a taste of this resilience beer, but where will people be able to get it?
Yeah, well, actually, I was out delivering a bunch of it last week, so if my brain wasn't total mush, I could probably rattle them all off. But it's been pretty awesome to, we sent that out to all the brewers, all the breweries, and to all of the retailers that we deal with. And I mean, it was just such an overwhelming response. You're never sure anytime you put out a beer, sometimes you send out an email and, you'll get a response, but sometimes it's maybe a little lukewarm. People are like, well, I'm not sure about this one. That was not the case with this beer. People were like, yes, I want as much as possible. Please, please, please send it to me. And so, again, we're obviously, we'll see, the public has the final say whether it's a good beer or not. But I think it's, kind of the right beer at the right time. Summer's just around the corner. It's been a really tough slog here. And again, I'm not to toot my own horn, but I really, really love the name Resilience. When I've shared that with other brewers, when I've shared that with the folks at Tourism, Saskatchewan and whatnot, they're just like, hell yeah, that is the greatest name ever. Because you got to have resilience, frankly, to just be in Saskatchewan, right? And it goes back, there's the whole history and, the indigenous community, living here for centuries and on and on and on. You got to be pretty hardy to get through just living in Saskatchewan, let alone a pandemic. So, yeah, sometimes good ideas come into my head. I don't know. Maybe some people think that name sucks, but whatever.
I think the name's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't come up with it.
Can't please everyone. But, again, so I mean, beyond that, and, again, just kudos again to Brianna Coffin that does our graphic design. Again, I emailed her. I said, we're making a beer called Resilience, and it's a collaboration beer for Saskatchewan. That's it. And I've shared some of the artwork. You can check it out. You'll see it. But she just absolutely crushed it. She's just such a great, talented person to work with, where you can just literally throw a word at her, resilience. And she's like, here's an amazing kick-ass beer can. And you're like, wow, thank you very much. So, again,
She
I
is
think,
great to work with.
yeah, again, it just speaks to, everyone in Saskatchewan and I know, I mean, again, I'm not putting words in her mouth. I mean, she feels so proud to be included in that and feel a part of that and contributing to that. And that's really what, to me, when we talk about Sask Craft Beer Week, it's not about me. It's not about whatever freaking beer, we made. It really is about all the people that play a role in it and feel ownership over it, right? And you see that on our the Facebook group, the Beer Lovers of Saskatchewan. I mean, it is a loyal, feisty bunch, and yeah, that feels good. Like I don't know. That's the stuff that helps. When we've got some pretty long days or some pretty tough times or a potential COVID outbreak or frankly, some of our friends dying. Um, those are pretty tough, heavy things to deal with, and to know that there's people in your corner saying, "Keep going. We believe in you. We love you." Yeah, that's pretty powerful, because I don't know how else you get through without knowing that. So again, I can't thank everybody enough.
It is really awesome to get to just pop into the group, fire off a couple goofy memes, but when somebody comes for like local craft beer or has some snarky things to say, you see them step up and just be like, no, this thing is bigger than that jackass's opinions. And it was nice. Like, we had a live cast event a couple weeks ago where everybody just came on and cheers to local craft beer, and it all came from them. Like, it wasn't the breweries pushing it. Like, no one from the brewery said we need to gin up this event. It was literally fans who came together and said, hey, this is important to us and we want to do this.
Yeah, it's super powerful. I was reading an article. I'm sure you and I'll talk about it a whole bunch more, but kind of talking about beer as a beer, the craft beer industry as a whole, and how its value proposition, has always just been better quality, better taste, and it's absolutely true. But it was kind of saying, like, the industry as a whole needs to up its game and live out better values and be more inclusive. And so I read as I was reading the article, I was just reflecting on what we do at Rebellion and what the beer industry in Saskatchewan is about. And I feel pretty good about that. We got a lot of work to do, but I just feel like we're going in the right direction around so many of those things. And it's about inclusion, and it's about sometimes being I don't know if you want to say political, but being thought leaders, and getting behind causes that mean a lot to ourselves and mean a lot to Saskatchewan, and the inclusiveness around just acceptance and tolerance and all of that sort of stuff, but also just including, frankly, including farmers in that, right? Again, it's the narrative around craft beer is that it's for a bunch of douchebag hipsters living in big cities down in the downtown district, right? And we've really flipped that narrative here in Saskatchewan. So yeah, I feel really good about that. And like I say, we can sometimes you get into some really serious, heavy topics, which are important, and I'm really proud of the way that we bring that stuff forward. But then also the humor bit of it, right? And that's truly what being a community and being friends is all about, right? It's a little bit of everything. It's not just like, well, here's a bunch of beer, give us money, because we're so cool. There's so much more to it than that. And yeah, so I think again, I'm not just talking about me. I'm talking about the whole industry and the whole community. Really, really believes in that, and so it certainly drives me to protect that and foster that and nurture that, because you see that, and I give the comparison to Alberta, right, where there is a lot of big oil money and a lot of big corporate investors that are frankly looking to pounce and benefit from the craft beer industry, and that frankly is what dilutes craft beer as a brand, is when these greasy douchebags try to come in and put their phony baloney spin on it. And so I feel really proud. I was reflecting just the other day. All of the homebrew friends. I was friends with Sean and Garrett up at 9 Mile. And Jeff from Nokomis. I mean, at Pile of Bones, you got Glenn, you got Nathan, you got Josh, you got Brent. I mean, and you got Travis. I mean, all of those people. We're all just homebrew friends. And I don't feel like those relationships have changed. They've just grown stronger. And, that's real. That's authentic. That's not just some phony company from Wisconsin coming in here and trying to say that they're a Saskatchewan company. Like, nobody falls for that, which I think is a really proud thing in Saskatchewan. We see through the bullshit. We smell it from a mile away, and that's pretty cool.
That's Saskatchewan Craft Brewers Association Craft Beer Week, starting May 3rd to May 8th. We've got the Resilience beer hitting shelves across Saskatchewan. Check out your local craft brewery. But I think you can go to like Sobeys, Co-op, all the private liquor stores. Like, it's everywhere, isn't it? You
should see it just about everywhere. We've asked all the retailers, any of the participating restaurants, to shout it from the rooftops. We've told them you can't, like I say, some of them have the beer and we're like, you can't release it until May 3rd, Monday, May 3rd. And so I know that they really, really, really want to tell everyone about it. So you shouldn't have to try too hard to find it.
Mark, thank you for your time today.
Hey, no, this is a pleasure, and I really hope everyone enjoys Resilience. And just, thank a farmer, thank a local brewer. You buy something else from another brewery, not just Resilience. And take the time to actually cheers and acknowledge all the cool stuff going on.
Rebels, thanks for listening today. If you have any questions or comments about this episode, be sure to join us on our brand new Facebook group page, the Rebellion Brewing Podcast. I'm also proud to let you know that we're members of the Saskatchewan Podcast Network, a one-stop shop for tons of locally produced shows from across our province. You can find them at saskpodcastnetwork.com. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Untapped so you don't miss out on the latest in Sask craft beer news. Thank you for joining the Rebellion.